in the 50s, I make a present soul. Lily girl, lily girl, lily girl, lily girl, what make you present soul? Lily girl, lily girl, lily girl, lily girl, what make you present soul? I make money down and a man on me hand and I make a present soul. I make money down and a man on me hand and I make a present soul. Stupid Gary, let's shame mommy, go marry, go one gold ring, stupid gold ring, stupid lily girl, lily girl, lily girl, lily girl, will make you present soul. Lily girl, lily girl, lily girl, lily girl, will make you present soul. This make a present, I make a present, this make a present soul. This make a present, I make a present, this make a present soul. Lily girl, lily girl, lily girl, lily girl, will make you present soul. Lily girl, lily girl, lily girl, lily girl, will make you present soul. He make a present. All right, hey, guess what? We are on live again. I know you guys are surprised to see me. I had to rush in my wardrobe. You know, we got it going on right here on 107.1 FM. We just did a live out there in Corriverton Market under fire. We're glad that there are no reports of any injuries there at all, but we will give you an update later on in the program. With me this evening is Nigel Hughes, no stranger to you guys. He has been around on the block for a very, 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 very long time. And as I said to Nigel, it seems as though he and I are going up the hill at the same time rapidly. It's just the other day that we knew each other. We were just little boys. Now we are elderly men. Nigel, good evening to you.
Hi, good evening, Mark. Always a pleasure to be on your show. Yes, we are getting close to that age.
Well, I actually meant that as a joke, but on my part, but I didn't realize that you were going to pick that up. But folks, we will be back. We will be back right here on 107.1 FM. Do share the link. I know it might be a bit confusion for you guys. We just finished one live into another live. Share the link. Let your friends know that we are on. It is 6 minutes after 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's 6 minutes after 9 o'clock in Guyana. Do share the link. We'll be right back with my guest this evening, Nigel Hughes. Nigel Hughes, attorney at law. We'll be right back.
Basement level vibes with another one, straight up blackness. Aye, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, Benskop stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, we have to gather wrong, grab a seat and sit down, pay attention. Education, liberation, we have to stand strong. Benskop upon the radio, lively up the program. Everybody call somebody and let them turn and tune and on the radio and catch the boom song.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
All right, for those of you who are now joining us, please do spread the word that we are on. Nigel Hughes is the guest tonight on Straight Up 107.1 FM. Spread the word, guys. And let's say good evening to the folks at Washington's law firm out there in Brooklyn, New York. Check them out. You got any problems, whatever it is, divorce, give them a call. Landlord want to kick you out. I almost had to look towards my door for a quick second, but good evening to all of you, every single one of you there. Then you have, what is it, Andrew's Supermarket. Give them a call. And then if you're in Brooklyn, check out Exquisite, Hair Salon, Hair Palace, And then if you're hungry, you can't go wrong. Linda's Restaurant. And then, of course, all your legal, not legal, but your immigration questions and concerns you may have, whether you want an adjustment of status, you want to file for a relative, whatever it is, just give me a call. Not while I'm on the air, though. Okay? Thank you so much. But guess what? Sorry, our operator, my guest again this evening. And let me just thank all of you for sharing the link. We are a straight up family. We just got off from one program to another program. And I know I took up a little bit of Sherrod Duncan's time. And let me just apologize to Sherrod Duncan because of that breaking news story. You know how it is. We don't squat on people's time. Only certain folks, certain mentality would do such a thing. But 11 minutes after 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 11 minutes after 9 o'clock Guyana time. Let's not have the attorney at law, Nigel Hughes, waiting here. Good evening again, Mr. Hughes. How are you?
Good evening, Mark. I am good. And again, thank you so much for your graciousness and having me on your program.
And we really do appreciate it. From the last time you were on this program, of course, you appeared as a guest. You have a different headphones. It seems as though things are looking good in Guyana. You have a brand new headphone this evening. Nigel, I want to ask you a quick question as we prepare to move into our program here. We are hearing a lot of things, greens, every single thing gone up, cost of living, and all these manner of things. What's the mood like in the people with all of these prices going up, sir?
Mark, I know people are finding it difficult. As you know, it's a very narrow circle that have expanding income. Everybody else tends to be in fixed income, and it's hard. I can tell you that from just the people I interact with every day. And as you know, I work in a very special part of urban Georgetown, and it's not easy.
And I know that very special part that you do work right there in the heart of every single thing. You get to sit right there, and sometimes I envy you. You sit right there at your office and you get to see everything firsthand. It's like a big screen TV, every single thing. Some of those folks on the ground, please do it. I hope they remember me. Give them my regards, please.
I certainly will.
A lot of good people on the ground.
Yes, indeed.
Nigel, apart from the main subject that I want to ask, recently this young man came under attack. He was very vocal out there on social media, talking up, leveling some accusations, allegations, and so forth against some top ones in the PPP regime. Less than 48 hours, this is the result. Your take on this situation?
Mark, I think it's pretty scary because this is clearly intended as a message to people who are prepared to criticize the present government and who are prepared to speak out about their various acts. And it's a clear message. I have to applaud Brian's bravery and his persistence. This is not pleasant. I don't expect the police will solve this crime, but I certainly want to express my personal sympathies to him for this. I don't think it was entirely unexpected. and it certainly is not unprecedented. You've had, people being had miasmic stuff thrown on them. Your good friend, actually, I think you shared a cell with him for a couple of nights at Brickdown. He had stuff thrown on him. Various people have been not only threatened, but in the case like Brian, they have been injured. So it's not a new development, but it is certainly a sign of the times that people seem to be getting a little bit more desperate. And I think, just to pick a line out of Natural Mystic, many more will have to suffer. And I hope to God that they don't have to die. But this is, not entirely unexpected. To be
Not
condemned.
entirely unexpected indeed. Good evening to those of you who are now joining us with me, no stranger. Nigel Hughes, attorney at law. Nigel, we have seen this over the years. These sort of crimes, they just go unsolved. And it points in the direction of politics and the politicians being not necessarily directly involved, but of course their utterances. These crimes have gone unsolved. You have just mentioned that this will just go into the waste bin again. Is that healthy for a society where people are being attacked as a result of their freedom of speech and exercising such constitutional right that they go unsolved?
No, 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 no. And there's so many examples throughout the world where we have seen really bad examples of it. You remember, I think it's Mr. Khashoggi, the gentleman in Saudi Arabia, who went into the embassy and ended up in pieces, chopped up. Myanmar, we in Gaza, they've shot and killed several journalists, and it doesn't all go well. It kind of speaks for the kind of society there is. I applaud again Brian's efforts at speaking out.
Yeah, these situations we find where folks are being charged with cybercrime, and only one set of people who are being charged with this cybercrime. Just it appears that only folks, political opponents of the PPP regime, they are quick to enforce this cybercrime law against their opponents and never against people who are supporters of the regime. Again, for democracy, how unhealthy that is.
Well, any law enforcement agency in any country that appears to act in a politically unequal way or a politically biased way or as if they have received political direction is not healthy for your society. It means that you are creating a situation in which people have no confidence in law enforcement. They have no confidence in the ability of them to act fairly. And consequently, people will find their own solutions, and that is unfortunate because their own solutions don't tend necessarily to be lawful solutions.
Got you. 17 minutes after 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's 17 minutes after 9 o'clock in beautiful Guyana. Good evening to all you folks in Georgetown, Linden, New Amsterdam, Corriverton, Blackbush Polar, wherever you guys are listening to us right now. Good evening to all of you. And for those outside of Guyana, we know that you're watching, and good evening to you. Nigel, let's touch on this independent fact-finding mission by some elected officials, state senators, and assembly representatives, and former elected officials of the United States. They went down to Guyana on this fact-finding mission, independent fact-finding mission. They have said that their report, they will submit it to the White House, they will submit it to the Black Caucus and other relevant agencies here in the U.S. But they were there, and the regime, headed by Irfan Ali and others, some say government, but the government basically turned a blind eye and disrespected them and said, look, to hell with you guys. We don't want to meet with you guys at all. Let us get your take on what they did to these people, sir.
Oh, well, I certainly think the position of the government to refuse to engage with such a high-ranking delegation, as a matter of fact, whether or not it was a high-ranking delegation, if you've got elected officials from a foreign-friendly government, particularly one that is as powerful as the United States, and particularly from a group as powerful and influential as the Black Caucus during a democratic government, and if you are the president of a multiracial society, which includes significant numbers of African Guyanese, to point blank be as ungracious as to refuse to meet them and suggest that they have an agenda, I think it's not only unfortunate, it really speaks volumes for the agenda of the people who refused to meet with them. The good thing is that notwithstanding the official position that was taken, um, various groups in Ghana took advantage of their presence here and shared with them their perspective on what is happening in Guyana. And so, we'll see what the report says and we'll see what the next steps are. I certainly think it's important. And finally, I think generally across the board, it's good that we are beginning to establish relationships with influential people in the United States of America, because that's just a natural progression um, for what's happening now in our status as an oil-rich and um, country that is not possessed of insignificant resources.
Absolutely. And these are the same people, Mr. Hughes, that Irfan Ali had no problem 2 years, just about 2 years ago, he had no problem meeting with most of these people. He had lunch with them, maybe dinner, whatever else he had with them right there at State House. It wasn't a problem then, but it's a problem now.
Well, the message is kind of clear, isn't it, Mark? That clearly he has no interest in meeting foreign dignitaries who have come here based in complaints that have emanated from Guyana. The fact that they have come here to find out what has happened, which provides him with an opportunity to share his side of the story, and he refuses point blank to meet with them, I think speaks volumes.
Speaks volumes indeed. 21 minutes after 8 o'clock. Nigel Hughes, prominent attorney, is with us this evening on 107.1 FM. We were made to understand that a delegation from the Inter-American Human Rights Commission, that's the OAS, they're due to be in Guyana tomorrow. And the regime, the installed government, seemed to be very happy being the host. Your take, sir?
Well, I think the visit of the OAS, well, sadly for the government, their actions display or disclose, what their approach is. The American government clearly is going to be the most influential partner that Guyana is going to have, certainly for the next 10, 15 years, for sure. And they say monkey know which line to climb on. The OAS was quite vocal when we had our difficulties in 2020 in relation to the elections. And so the present government, of course, is going to not mince its perception of them. And certainly, I'm sure, would want to express their gratitude to them for their participation in 2020. The good thing about the Inter-American Human Rights Commission is that the commission itself is quite independent, and there are several issues here in Guyana that need immediate attention, which should be brought to their attention. Some of them I'm sure we'll discuss later on, like no Human Rights Commission in Guyana, even though under the Constitution that has been there since 2001. So be interesting. But we welcome everybody, like you. We welcome everybody, whether they are sympathetic to our position or not.
Absolutely. And just to let our listeners know that tomorrow, the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights team, somebody's echoing, team to visit Guyana. They are going to be there from the 28th, which is tomorrow, until December 1st, which is Friday. And the regime has opted to ignore opposition elements. So first of all, there are folks in the opposition and human rights groups who have already written to the organization to say, well, look, they need to have a voice as well, not just the people in the regime. They need to have a voice as well. Nigel, I believe you wrote to this organization requesting such to be done.
Well, we are about to prepare that. I'm actually in consultations with an Inter-American human rights lawyer who has appeared before the commission for the purposes of preparing a petition on behalf of my dear wife, Catherine Hughes.
And we will definitely get to that shortly. Let's welcome Mr. Wayne Caesar on with us. Wayne, good evening. Hope you had a great weekend. What's happening as we talk about the developments in Guyana? Good evening, sir.
Council, and good evening to all our listeners and viewers.
Good
Yes.
night, sir.
All right. I'm not sure if this could be the first time that Wayne is on with Mr. Nigel Hughes. Just to make this point clear, this is not a uniform that we wear on Straight Up. It just so happened it's a coincidence that we have on the same shirt. I'm not feeling too comfortable right now with this. Seems as though. So let's not so long ago, Mr. Nigel Hughes, you represented an individual in the PPP regime and you said, let the system work. I didn't get a chance to question you about that. But now that I have you on 107.1 FM, people seem to have been a little bit offended with that statement, let the system work, knowing that the system doesn't work. And I must admit, maybe you would have gotten that call that Ben Shop was a little bit upset. But what exactly you meant, sir, by let the system work, knowing very well that the system wouldn't work? Your take, sir.
First of all, Mark, I understand how upset you were. I heard your views. I listened to your interviews. I heard the joint statements of both yourself and your colleague over in the UK. So I'm familiar with it, but like you, shoulders abroad. Let the system work. Mark, in every society, there has to be some semblance of order, rule of law, and the institutions. In several societies, those institutions are weak. Absolutely. And Ghana is no exception to that. Um, but when you have weak institutions, you still have to have some semblance of order and the rule of law. And therefore, the system at least has to attempt to appear to work before you take it apart. Otherwise, what you have is anarchy. If you don't have a system, or if you're not prepared to let the system at least go through the motions of working, then what happens is you ascribe onto yourself the sole responsibility of becoming the arbiter, while not affording the people you dislike an opportunity to be heard, an opportunity to present their side of the case. And I'm sure you, of all people, know from painful experience that there are at least two sides to the story. Now, that lawyers don't represent the causes of their client. What they do is they attempt to afford their clients an opportunity to have a fair hearing and present the best possible presentation. Forgive me for the tautology there, present the presentation, but the best possible defense that they have. That's our responsibility. I have defended people who have been accused of the most heinous offenses, and they have been acquitted. I don't know if you're going to use that as a basis to say that I'm an advocate for mass murder or I'm an advocate for something else. And the true test of any system, and I say this with great respect, is that it must be able to resist the presentation of arguments of those that are supposedly possessed of some skill. Because you can't have a system that just panders to whatever the public position is at the time. And so when I said let the system work, at least go through the motions, and then if the system doesn't work, you have a basis to be able to attack the system. But when you attack the system before it's afforded an opportunity to give the best and the worst of us a right to be heard, then we have a problem.
But there are quite a lot of people, and I agree with them too, including yours truly, have been through the system and understand that under a particular regime, for the most part, Mr. Hughes, the system doesn't work, no matter how much we try. You, as a lawyer, you have been trying for so many years to ensure that the system works. But in the end, guess what? For the most part, the system doesn't work. Were you expecting
Right.
the system to work under that circumstances?
If I was expecting the system to work,
Yeah.
meaning what? You mean in the case of Mr. Darmla?
You
Well,
got it.
no, sure. Let me address this. I would ask you, what does the system working look like? Um, is it because you wanted a particular outcome in those circumstances and that outcome did not manifest itself, meant that the system didn't work? It's not meant for me to judge. And I wouldn't comment on whether the system worked or not. Of course, I represent a lot of clients. Their confidences remain with me, and it's the confidences are owned by them. So I'm not going to share anything. But what I would say is, if you feel that a system is not functioning, or if a system did not deliver a result that you thought was fair and just, then you need to start demonstrating to the citizenry what the fault lines are with the system. You then have to advocate for changes in the system, and you need to demonstrate to the population why the system failed if you think it failed. So it doesn't end by saying that the system doesn't work. You got to go beyond that. It's no point. It's like apartheid. You have apartheid, so you say it's apartheid. It's bad. You got to go to the next step. You got to fight to get rid of it.
Got you. 30 minutes after 8 o'clock. It's 30 minutes after 9 o'clock in Guyana. And people, we will move away from this, but people already have a better understanding in terms of when the system wouldn't work. They see this sort of imbalance in terms of the justice scale, that the ordinary man and woman in Leopold Street will have to suffer. They'll have to spend 72 hours in the lockups for some very, very minor crimes. They'll have to go through some very painful situation, whether at the police station, whether in the lockups, they will be remanded, they will be charged for very minor offenses. We saw what happened with the Henry boys, their relatives, their mothers, both of whom have deceased, and one recently. Our condolences again. The relatives were locked up. They were threatened, all sorts of things because of the system. But when you see the system, go ahead, sir.
You are one of the primary examples of the system failing. You sat down in prison for 5 years for a political offense, and one of the system failed you, as you know. You went up to a trial before a jury. There was one particular juror who refused to go with the rest. So I was hoping that what would come out of that is that we would start a campaign to remove political offenses from the statute books. Treason, sedition. I think maybe about 2 years after you had been charged, Oliver Hinkson was charged with sedition because he went on a program and spoke about former soldiers. Ended up in prison. They didn't want to give him bail. And the sad thing is, the fact that you eventually got released, we take that as a victory, when really and truly it should really be a primary step to moving to the next stage, to have removed from the statute books political offenses that take away the liberty of the citizens. Or alternatively, if you want to keep something like treason on the books, you can't leave it for the decision makers who are political organs. You can't. You have to make sure that you have a system as far as possible that is fair. Like in the United States, it doesn't matter whether you're Democrat or Republican. If you infringe the law, you got to face the consequences. And that's what you want. I know it was a huge personal toll, but for me, people who get charged with treason, look at Carol Monroe and her husband, Bruce. That was
and
awful.
Mr. Wharton too.
And Junior. That campaign, you see people, they move you to a position where you're so relieved after you get released from prison. And you think, yeah, okay, treason charge dismissed. And really, the real tragedy starts there, because you need to move to a place where you ask, like in Carol Monroe, how on earth does she end up on a treason trial with no evidence? The magistrate, this didn't even go to the jury. The magistrate threw it out. So, and they hired one of the best prosecutors, Vic Puran at the time. So we've got to think this through, and we have to think long term and set aside the immediate emotional reactions and really start to address what it is we want to change. Because you know what's going to happen? They're going to pick up somebody next week, charge them with treason, and we all going to get upset. We're going to go down the street. When they think is an adequate time, they're going to release the person, and we leave the system exactly where it is.
Thanks for the reminder that I sometimes forget that the PPP, the corrupt PPP regime, actually charged me not only with treason, but with sedition as well. Sedition also. Thanks for that reminder. Mr. Wayne Caesar, let's have a comment from you. Thanks, and sorry for having you wait 15 minutes before you say something. Go right ahead if you have a question,
No, that's
Minister.
fine. Yes, I do have a few questions to Mr. Hughes, but I'm going to start off with this one. Um, Given what was said at Barry Jagdio's last press conference in relation to the Honorable Miss Cathy Hughes, who is your wife, Mr. Hughes, the statements that was made by Barry Jagdio that she ultimately is a low life. I want to take a different line because I know you've been asked these questions a few times. I would have seen it on programs that you were asked the same questions. But the ERC, I would have expected something coming from them because I'm figuring if it was someone in the opposition that would have made such a statement, there would have been some measure of repercussions. I would like your take as to why, nothing from the ERC.
Okay, first thing, I would like to, I want to point this out because we seem to be missing this point and concentrating on Mr. Jagdeo. The Vice President of Guyana, speaking in his official capacity as Vice President, the General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party, speaking also in his capacity as General Secretary, not accused, described the former Minister of the Government and female African MP as a lowlife. That is an official government position. It's not a Barrett Jagdeo position. Barrett Jagdeo didn't say this from Freedom House. Barrett Jagdeo said this from the Office of the Vice President giving an international press conference, which he does every week. And therefore, we have to understand that this is the official government position in relation to a female MP, African female MP, who was once a minister of the government. Now, the next question is, are we really living in the same country where the official position of the state and the acceptable position of the state is to refer to an African female MP as a lowlife? Because that's what it is. People are getting distracted by the fact that Barrett Jagdeo is the person that uttered this. It is the vice president that uttered it, and it's the general secretary of the People's Progressive Party. Now, coming to the Ethnic Relations Commission and their action or inaction, what I would say is nothing surprising there thus far. This statement was made on Thursday. We are now at the end of Monday. It may well be that they are planning to do some action. I don't anticipate that they will do anything. But again, I have no expectations of that particular body being able, capable, or permitted to do anything. So what happens, and it's unfortunate, that in the case of Mrs. Hughes, she's married to somebody who's a lawyer who can probably offer more solutions. And therefore, there are things that we are going to do because you cannot possibly have the official state position in relation to women being that you can refer to them as low lives. I mean, that low lives. So that means that we have to challenge the regional institutions because our confidence in the local institutions is not at its highest. So we have, for example, various conventions that the country has signed on to. We have CARICOM. Let us test the system of CARICOM. What is the Secretary General of CARICOM is a woman, and we are going to make applications to CARICOM and petitions to CARICOM because you have here a former female minister being referred to officially as a lowlife. What is Mia Motley going to say about this? Is it acceptable to Mia Motley? I don't know if she's still sitting in the chair of CARICOM to have the vice president of a country officially refer to a member of parliament as a lowlife. We've had a former prime minister of Jamaica. So we have to see what the regional institutions, if they really are there for the citizens of the Caribbean, because it's the institutions. It's not so much the sensationalism of the fact that Barrett Jagdeo said this. It's the official position of the government. And therefore, the Caribbean region has to come to a position on the kind of culture that it accepts from its fellow heads of state. I had posted on Sunday that if someone were to refer to the First Lady in similar terms, forget the fact that there would have been a huge reaction and hue and cry domestically. That level of culture is not acceptable in the region, and people would rightly condemn it. As a matter of fact, I believe the leader of the opposition, Mr. Norton, had commented on Miss Mia Motley not being as forthright as she ought to have been in relation to the Guyana Venezuela crisis. And Miss Mia Motley responded the same day or the next day. Well, if she is so concerned, let's see what the institutions in the region do. And then we have CEDA and we have other international institutions, because these matters need to be brought to the attention of the world of what sort of regime you are dealing with when you come to Guyana. So internationally, when Guyana goes and starts to make representations, particularly as they want to do with Venezuela, they must know that the official position of the government is that they feel free to refer to an African female sitting member of the National Assembly as a lowlife. And this is Thursday, and we have not heard a single comment, not that we expected any, from the government or the People's Progressive Party. Not that we expected, but it does speak in relation to their position. So when you ask me about the Ethnic Relations Commission, my position, despite the fact that I practice in the courts every day, is that my level of confidence in some institutions is not at the level at which I believe that they are capable of delivering what their mandate says.
All right, 41 minutes after 8 o'clock. Since we get to that question early o'clock, let's get back to the ERC. The chairman of the ERC, Mr. Mohin Haq, who happens to be the husband of the DPP, just thought I remind our listeners about that. Not much of a relevance, but just thought I remind them that he came out publicly denouncing what Sherrod allegedly said by calling, allegedly, mind you, Mark Phillips, who sits there as the prime minister, a house slave.
Yes.
And right away, there was a reaction from the ERC, right off the bat. But we are seeing, absolutely, we're not hearing anything from them on this here. And you are correct. If someone had mentioned that word to the Mr. Irfan Ali's wife, then everybody would have been in uproar. But we are seeing absolutely nothing from the Ethnic Relations Commission. No member of the Ethnic Relations Commission has had any sort of decency to say anything, including my good friend, Norris Witter, who sits there as a commissioner. Nothing at all.
We only have to look at the evidence. Sherrod Duncan, like you, very popular journalist, refers to the prime minister in a certain historic category. And the ERC is concerned about it. Here we have the vice president of the country speaking officially on behalf of the government and on behalf of his political party, referring to a female member of the opposing party, African by the way, in a term that is particularly derogatory and offensive, and they say nothing. If you were to take a poll of most of the persons in the African community, they will say, one, that they're not surprised by the position adopted by the ERC, both in relation to Mr. Sherrod Duncan and in relation to Catherine Hughes. Two, they will say they have no expectations of that institution. And three, they're not at all surprised. Now, what that means is that where you have a large segment of your population that has close to no confidence at all in the institutions one of the institutions whose mandate it is to try and address the issue of race, then clearly that institution it doesn't even have a lot of work to do. It is going to be unable to deliver on its mandate. And so the victims of this level of gross disrespect, because I rather suspect being called a lowlife is a little worse than being called a house slave. And I rather suspect that most of the African population in this country will rapidly reach a stage where they are going to think that the institutions that ought to be discharging their mandate to protect them are failing them. And we can go through global examples of what happens after that. Um, you don't have to go far to find Haiti. You don't have to go far to find other parts of this region where they're faced with real crises, real crises.
Before we head back to Mr. Caesar, not so long ago on the same subject of house slave, Joe Hamilton, who sits there as an MP and a minister of the regime, actually said nothing is wrong with being called a house slave. He loves that description, and he gave his interpretation of a house slave. But I guess low life for only one particular set of people. Cathy Hughes falls into that category. It's acceptable. And we're not seeing the women's organizations out there. They're not seeing anything. The WPO, that is the women's arm of the PPP, they're very, very silent on these matters. But it's pretty obvious by now. Mr. Caesar, your next question.
What the ERC mandate would be. I mean, yes, they may have a written mandate, but maybe their mandate is to serve the PPPC. We don't know. That might just be it, because that seems to be the direction that they're always going in. But my next question to Mr. Hughes is looking at the judiciary from a holistic perspective. We have the position of Chief Justice and Chancellor of the Judiciary. We have two Afro-Guyanese women who have been acting in these two positions for some time. Why is it that their status has not changed from acting to permanent?
Okay. In answering that, I want to say that we should really look at that from when this acting thing started. Because before you had Madam Chancellor Yana Cummings and Chief Justice Roxanne George, you had Chancellor Carl Singh, who was Chancellor acting for several years. Back in 97, after there was a lot of public dissent about what was happening in the country, we ended up in some constitutional reform talks. And one of the amendments we made to the Constitution was that you can't have the appointment of the Chancellor and the Chief Justice unless the leader of the opposition and the government agrees. That was done on the assumption that our politicians would be responsible and that they wouldn't subject the judiciary to that level of political competition. Sadly, things have always got worse in Guyana, and then after a while, and it's always been the underlying fundamental problem in Guyana, race surfaces. We now happen to have two female Africans in the position of Chancellor and Chief Justice, and the political position hasn't changed. Whether this is because people want to make political points, or whether this is because of a deeper underlying problem in terms of race, we would never know. I think the leader of the opposition has made it very clear that insofar as these candidates are concerned, they should be confirmed in their positions. What I will say is that both of these candidates have served this country exceptionally well. And I don't think either of them deserves to be subject to this level of political dispute. The reality is, you have now placed them in a position where, if their positions are advocated for by one side, people would think, well, that judge belongs to that side, or that judge has some responsibility that side. And that is the most, I think, unfortunate position to put any professional who has given their entire life to the public service, like both of these young ladies have done. Miss Chancellor, I think I've been at the bar just as long as the Chancellor. And after 6 years of giving your life to the bar, to end up where you are now the subject of a political debate and people making all sorts of comments. I think during the election cases in 2020, God help us, I mean, the sort of attacks that came from the highest levels of the political echelons against Chancellor Cummings, and suggesting that these decisions are political in nature, against Justice Gregory. And once we start to open up our judiciary and they become fair game for that level of political discourse at the highest level, then we're making the bed for real difficulty, for real difficulty. Because if you end up with two Indian candidates in the same position, then on principle, the African opposition is going to say, well, you didn't do it for these, so we ain't going to do it for you. And the judicial system will continue to suffer from these degradations in their integrity, which are totally unjustified.
You know,
And I would say race related for
uh,
sure.
Well,
Go
back
ahead.
yeah,
back in 1997, as you did say, Mr. Hughes, that there was this constitutional reform that made it clear that the opposition, the confirmation or the appointment of a chief justice or a chancellor must have the blessings of the opposition. In 2001, there was a vacancy when the chancellor of the judiciary, Madame Bernard, went into retirement, and she subsequently joined the Caribbean Court of Justice. Then there was an opening there. And so the Chief Justice position became vacant. And so I recall that there was an impasse there. And that's where Claudette Singh, the current chairman of GCOM, felt that she was slighted out of that position. And Mr.
yep,
Hoyt, at that time, opposition leader, had to give his blessings to Carl Singh, who was acting in that position for so many years. Not only that of some sort of impasse, because the impasse, we have already gotten over that, but the reluctance of the PPP to have a constitutional body such as the Judicial Service Commission be installed. That wasn't operational for quite some time. However, that's not the case now. And as you have said, correctly so, Mr. Hughes, that the leader of the opposition has said publicly after the government said, look, they want to confirm these two persons in the position of Chancellor and Chief Justice. They want to confirm it. They have no objection. The leader of the opposition said, look, I have no objections towards that. But yet, months after, going on a year now after, absolutely no movement on the part of the regime. And going back to what Wayne just mentioned, race. Two black women in that position. Do you think race has something to do with this right now?
Mark, I would say this. I am always reluctant, in the absence of real evidence, to accuse people of anything, and particularly racism. Um, People may well say, well, you accuse the government of being biased. And I make that accusation after I presented evidence in a PowerPoint presentation. Um, I don't know. I would say both of them are outstanding jurists. I don't know what the government's position is on them. Um, but certainly I am unaware of. Okay, to give an example, we didn't have a Judicial Service Commission for must be a year, probably 2 years. The amount of judges that were allowed to retire, we're now down to 6 or 7 judges when the full complement is 20. So the system is, admirably managed by the few judges that we have, but the reality is the burden is too much, and this has been a real challenge. And we only get the Judicial Service Commission, it must have been what, a month and a half ago, despite the fact that the Attorney General represented to the Chancellor, to the nation in the National Assembly, that we would have had this Judicial Service Commission last year. The problem with that is, in a country that is as divided as Guyana, if you don't do what you say you're going to do, the first thing people are going to become suspicious about is that your actions or inaction, as the case may be, has political motives. Because if you don't give a reason why you couldn't appoint the head of the Public Service Commission so that person you can then have a proper quorum and a properly constituted Judicial Service Commission, people are going to say that you have a problem with the judiciary and that problem is political. And in Guyana, political means race. Now, if for no other reason, just to assuage those fears and to put to rest any such suggestion, wild as it may be, you should have done this a long time ago. You haven't provided a simple explanation for why it took so long. So what are people going to say? You wait until, and then what they're going to say? Or they were waiting to end up with a Judicial Service Commission that has 3 Indian people and 2 African people. And then, people are going to speculate about that and what the political objectives. And every time we do that, we chip away at the respect we have for the judiciary. And in a country that is as fractured as this one is, almost irreparably so, that is the worst thing you want to have. So you have to be conscious that your actions don't send messages that support the perhaps irrational suspicions of people.
All right. Sorry about that. Someone just mentioned, and Don Cush, good evening to Don, the Chancellor acting and the Chief Justice, they were both acting DPP, Director of Public Prosecution.
They were never confirmed.
They were never confirmed.
Never.
But thank you, Ms. Cush, something came to mind that the very moment the now Chief of Staff of the Army was sworn in, received his instrument from Irfan Ali, he was confirmed 1 second after. So there's no issue about confirmation. Absolutely none.
Well, Mark, like I said, unfortunately, if you continue to provide people with information that appears to have other motives, then you cannot fault them for coming to conclusions which are, adverse to the fair administration of the country.
In one of your you demonstrated, and quite correctly, the discrimination of African Guyanese as it pertains to the awarding of contracts. Obviously, that's a racial issue.
Well, I can only say that's what the evidence suggests. If you have 6 cambio licenses and only 1 is African, if you have only 9% of the quarries, and right now stone probably is carrying more, it's more expensive than cocaine by the weight. If only 9% of your quarries are issued to African people and all the rest go to another ethnicity, where people are applying for quarry licenses who are African and they don't get it, where the entire major budgets for health and for water is 100% in one direction. My position is, don't listen to me, just tell me what the evidence says to you, and you draw your conclusion. And if I published that report a year ago, and what is perhaps the most damning thing is after a year, it's probably 18 months, there has been no announcement to redress what is clearly an imbalance. Now, you may say, as they said last year, remember the tune used to be bring the evidence. The evidence was presented. The tune then was there were historic reasons for this imbalance. Now, if you're a government and part of your population clearly is disadvantaged, whether for historic reasons or others, you would expect that the policies would change to be able to rebalance this. Now, we know it doesn't happen overnight, but at least you need to announce a policy initiative that will start to address it. And I'd want to take away, you may say I'm African, therefore I'm sensitive. I want to go to the indigenous people. The indigenous people have not, just follow this. Guyana got the prize, the Guyanese students got the prize to top the entire Caribbean, which means that they were the brightest across the region, 20-something ones or whatever it is. And in the same Guyana, not a single indigenous person, not one, got a grade 1. Not one single indigenous person got a grade 1 last year, and Guyana topped the region. What does that say to you? That there is a part of this population that is not being afforded the same support, the same education, and consequently their life chances are impaired. Think about it. And the average grade for the indigenous person is grade 4. Everybody else is grade 3, 2 or 3. So in an oil society where you have to be qualified, you probably need to have at least 6th form or tertiary education to begin to get a semi-decent job in the oil industry. It means that the entire indigenous population does not have a chance. And it's not about changing the system for the next 5 years. It means right now, every single Amerindian child who is coming out of secondary school does not have a realistic chance of participating in the wealth of this country by virtue of their qualifications. Secondly, the dropout rate in the Amerindian community from secondary schools is not the national dropout rate is a scandal, it's 48%. The dropout rate for Amerindians is way above that. So that means that that entire population are not going to make it. They're either going to have to continue to cut down trees in the bush or go and fetch water in some gold mining camp. So you have condemned all the school leavers and all the school dropouts in the indigenous community to second-class citizenship when you have no shortage of financial resources to begin to dedicate. For me, if you saw those statistics, you should declare a national emergency in the indigenous communities and do absolutely whatever is necessary to make sure that the next set of Amerindian children graduating are nowhere near, their life prospects must not be so adversely affected. And what happens is because the indigenous community does not live in the coast, because they're virtually invisible, it's almost as if, like the apartheids, they used to send you to the homelands. They used to say, these are independent homelands, and you're going to send you to homelands. It is exactly the same for the indigenous community. They are invisible. Nobody sees them. Nobody takes a camera into those communities. And when you start to add the health issues and the sexual abuse and all the other issues, it is as if for the rest, the prospects of anything looking like a normal or average life for an Amerindian person is zero. And we sit down on the coast very comfortably and we say, oh, things are getting better. One set of people get 22 grade ones, top the entire Caribbean, and the next can't even make one grade one in the same country, and we don't have 1 million people. So it's, we got to decide what we're doing here.
We certainly have.
Mark,
Wayne, 1 second, quick, Wayne. I just wanted to bring to Nigel's attention that not so long ago, you had to represent an individual because Bara Jagdeo was charged for being an ideological racist. We're not one foreign head of diplomatic heads happen to have been black, African Guyanese. Not a single one. And there are lots of other examples.
They said that they were not qualified.
We are seeing the same pattern now, sir. Same pattern. Omar Khan was immediately confirmed as a substantive chief of staff of the Guyana Defense Force. His predecessor acted for over 3 years. We have a chancellor of the judiciary acting. We have a chief justice acting, and no confirmation. Every other heads, because of their ethnicity, were confirmed. But Mr. Caesar, sorry for the interruption. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, Mark, I have something else to say, but I want to quickly add on to what you say. And Mr. Hughes, why I would take the position that, the Chief Justice not being confirmed and the Chancellor not being confirmed, why I would say that it's race related, because when we look at the people in Moko who was bulldozed, when we look at the people at Hillfoot who was bulldozed, all Afro-Guyanese, and there's a few indigenous in between, So the position of this government is known. It is known, we see it, But anyhow, Mark, I want to touch back on the education thing.
But to put it in context, the Chancellor Carl Singh didn't get confirmed either. And one can argue that, it could have been race. I just want to make sure that we, that's in there. And not that I expect you to respond to it, but I just, historically, you need to put that in there.
But the circumstances under which Carl Singh wasn't confirmed are totally different from these two. The regime said they're ready. Anil Nandalal said they are ready to confirm both of them. The leader of the opposition, Aubrey Norton, said, yes, I am ready. I have no problem with these two individuals. Totally different from Carl Singh, Nigel. Totally different.
Yeah, I mean, we can always find seek to make differentiations. The point is, as a society collectively, and I say this all the time, it's a fact that we don't get on. That's there's no point keep singing, kumbaya, kumbaya. We're gonna get on sometime. We don't. That's a fact. We do not get on. For 60 years, we have not gotten on. I think that's
We
enough
got to get
empirical.
on at
No,
some point in
no,
time.
it's enough empirical evidence to suggest us, if we're rational, let's acknowledge we don't get on. We can work on how we're going to get on in the future, but at least let us have institutions that are not polluted by this problem, and that we put in place systems to make sure that only those who are fair and unbiased get into positions where they make decisions that affect everybody else. And most importantly, that we have disaggregated data, that we always look at the data. And just as how the data says no Amerindian got a grade 1, we must use the data to decide what the policies are.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Caesar. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and Mr. User, I'm so glad that you bring up those points and give those statistics on the dropout rate and stuff, because I wasn't even aware of that, and it's tremendously high. I'm a stickler for education, and seeing that we had a budget for education of $94.4 billion, and would have just said that not one indigenous child got a grade 1. That is quite concerning. And I would point directly to the Minister of Education, Ms. Priyamani Chan, and let her know, hey, you have some work to do here. Where is this money being allocated? Is it just budgeted and not allocated? Can we source? Can we see where this money has been sourced actually to the indigenous people to actually help these children, and bring them up to standard? Because from what you're saying, Mr. Hughes, it already looks as if these children are just born into failure already. They would
Well, their
never
life
be given
chances
a
are determined.
chance.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah, what I will say is that the Minister of Education will probably say that she is dedicating resources, that this takes time. The reality is that if you are putting that sort of money into an educational system and it's still not delivering the results, unless it's across the board, then something must be wrong with your system. You can't, it's what was the definition of lunacy? Doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So it must mean that something is a problem here. Um, if there are parts of India where people go to school sitting under a tree and get fantastic results. So um, here's part of the problem. Building schools is not the solution to getting better results. It's the quality of the tuition, the quality of the teaching. Therefore, your resources really need to be dedicated to making sure that the product of whether it's the Sarah Potter Education, Sarah Potter Teaching College, or whatever, the product of what is in the school is improved. Because if I teach you under a mango tree and you give me 10 A's, and I teach you in the most sophisticated school and you only give me 4 D's, then it's not the location of your intuition. It is the quality of the education that is imparted. And we have to look at what the problem is here. Now, I've always advocated there are 2 things that should never be political in Guyana. We should remove, just as how we have unity on the border crisis, we should have a common approach to education, and we should have a common approach to health. Neither of those issues should ever be political. Neither. The health of the nation and the education of the nation. And so, and you need disaggregated data because, for example, if you take diabetes, and this is just an example, I have no numbers in diabetes. If you have diabetes and you say you got 5 regions and the average is 10 persons per region getting diabetes, you might decide that you're going to spread the resources for diabetes treatment equally. But if you go a layer deeper, and you discover of the 10 persons in each region, 9 are of a particular ethnicity, let's say 9 are black, then what you have to do is not just send the same resources to each community. You have to target the community that has the greatest need. And you can only do that if you have disaggregated data. We shouldn't be having political arguments about the education plan for children. We should have a 15-year plan. All the parties sign off on it, they agree with it, and it's a question of implementation. Similarly with health, that's not a political issue. And then if you pull, in the case of education, if you pull the results of the private school out of those statistics, you would be you'd be staggered to understand what's going on. And this is a country that made free education available, progressive, 1976. And so we have some real issues that we're not even considering.
All right, 9 minutes after 9 o'clock. That's Eastern Standard Time. It's 9 minutes after 10 o'clock in Guyana. Our program is coming to wrap up time. Mr. Wayne Caesar, your final question, please.
Okay, this one is gonna be a little tough, Mr. Hughes, but answer it the best
I'll
way
bring
you
them.
can.
No. I say bring them on. Yeah.
Mr. Hughes, you have the character. Your character speaks for itself.
I don't know about that, sir.
You're popular with the people
No.
on the
I will say
phone.
to you, you don't know my character the way I know it. So
Right. Let's leave it that way. Let's leave it just that way for this question. You're very popular with the people on the ground. Um, of course, highly skilled, highly educated. You've proven to be an excellent leader. Do you have any ambition to get back into politics full time and
no,
you know?
that's an easy question. And not hard. No, not at all. That's an easy question. I don't
Okay.
even have to think about it.
All right.
I'm not
I
a
just
leader.
wanted.
I've never been in a leadership position. I think I was chairman of the AFC.
Well,
But
you've exemplified great leadership qualities. I must.
and I would say to you, Mr. Caesar, if you were a woman, I'd say thank you very much. Let's go to dinner. But no, not at all. I'm getting old, and I got plans to do other things with my family, and I will continue to be available to contribute to Guyana as best as I can in the manner in which I can. But that does not include at the moment anything looking like political leadership.
Thank you so much, Mark. Back over to you, sir. Mark, you're silent.
I'm just trying to read Nigel's facial expression on that. Because just the other day, Nigel, you were out in Linden, you were shaking hands, you were walking around, and many people saw that as is Nigel attempting to come back in the political field, so to speak, after. But I guess
What's the name of the junior, the son of the in Lion King? What was his name?
Simba.
Simba. Hey,
Yeah.
Simba, he's here. No. This is classic. I was in Linden because I drove my wife to Linden because she's going to do AFC work in Linden. And I was going up to I was going to do some work in my office in Linden. And I had to drop her off on what they call Parliament Square, where all the guys gather on Saturday. And of course, Linden is where I made my first political speech. I think people are very gracious. They are very warm to me in Linden. And so naturally, I think, I came out and the guys were saying, hey, what you doing? Good to see you, Nigel, and stuff. And people snapped that picture. And then, of course, that got taken. Mark, I don't like the reaction in your face, but that got taken out of context. But I didn't walk around and I would have to be in some serious happy juice to want to go back into politics.
Nigel.
Well, but let me be fair. Let me fear this. Let me say this too. In the event the things got really, really, really bad, seriously bad, and that is gonna have to be real bad. I would assist the team if in any way it would have some sort of positive impact in Guyana. I would assist the team. That's as far as I would be willing to go. But it got to be desperate circumstances.
Assisting that team, if asked by that team to be the presidential candidate, what will be your reaction then if things get really, really desperate?
You can't assist and be leader. You assist as you provide support too. So my reaction to them would be the basis on which I'm assisting is not that I want to become a leader. The reality with Guyana is I don't think any single individual is capable of rescuing this country from where it is. you need a team of your best and brightest. I would render support to that. Yeah, for sure.
All right, Nigel Hughes there for you guys. You heard it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And for those who messaged to talk about Nigel is back in the political arena, look, he's in Linden campaigning. You heard it there. He was the Uber driver to his beautiful wife, Kathy. Um, First, when she was Minister of Information, he was the guy who carried the bag around his. Oh,
I still carry the bag. That preceded her becoming a minister.
Nigel,
Yeah, but I still
Nigel.
carry the bag.
Nigel, I know I said before we go, take a look at this here now. Um, Air Finale is set to head off to Dubai while we're having this serious problems there with Venezuela. He's going out of the country again. Your take of him leaving the country at this time?
He must have confidence in his juniors and deputies. I mean, you know who the de facto president is, and you know who the de jure president is.
So that answers the,
The de facto president is here. So, what you want to say? I
listen,
think that
let's listen to the de facto president and let's get solicit your response to this here as we're in crisis with Venezuela.
You could probably, on the maritime area, give Venezuela a channel out to the sea. So you make a slight concession in the maritime area.
Yeah.
Mind you, before you respond to that, Mr. Hughes, that is exactly the reason why your wife was called, quote unquote, a low life by that guy who wants to sell Guyana out. Now, maybe you will be subjected to all forms of descriptions as well. But go ahead and respond to what Jack Deere just said.
He said it. What do you want me to say? That is a recording of Mr. Jack Dio saying what he said. What do you want me to say? He didn't say it?
Your take on someone who holds such a position is talking about ceding, giving away piece of the economic zone to a country that wants a big portion of Guyana.
Well, Mark, again, um, questions have context. I am a low lifer, so I have no fear of being branded a low lifer, and I'm married to a low lifer. So, but this is a very critical time in Guyana's history. He said what he said. I don't see how you can take it any way other than what he said. He was asked for an explanation. He appeared to have given what he thought was his explanation. At this point, people got to make their own call. I mean, I think it is pretty clear cut. People got to make their own call. You want me to comment on it? My position with that is that I am not sure where you have a settled border dispute, which was settled in 1899. It became an issue sometime around 64. Why you would want to make that statement at the time you made it. I don't see what the benefit of having made that statement at the time he made it, knowing fully well what is likely to happen to the statement he made. Bart Jagdeo is a very smart political operator. Why he would make that statement at the time he made it, I don't know. The consequences he has to live with. He's made the statement. It is now an issue. It has now perhaps become a distraction when we should be speaking with one voice in Venezuela. Sadly, we're not. And sadly, the joint efforts that should be undertaken both by the government of Guyana and the government of Guyana and the opposition are not. But we have some serious discussions coming up. And I don't know if people are going to realize it. We're going to have to make a decision soon on whether there's going to be a military base here in Guyana. That's just a fact, because nobody's going to come and help us for free. We have a big future ahead of us in terms of our resources. How are we going to manage that? When we get a base here, some people may say it's a great thing. My only position on that is I don't have a position either way, is have a discussion with the people. Don't present them with a fait accompli and then tell them it's the best thing since sliced bread for them. So let's start to have the real discussions. And then we have to decide Venezuela is going to come back online. I don't think I think if there's going to be any invasion, it's going to be a soft invasion. I don't see Venezuelan military coming in at all. But that's my position, and I may be completely wrong. What they're going to do is I think they're going to have people just come across the border, set up camps. They're going to claim that they're refugees. We don't have the ability to deal with it. And de facto, that border would have moved by virtue of those people coming over. Because the people come over, they're going to make children with the Guyanese people. The village will be predominantly Spanish speaking. And before you know it, it's a fluid border. But my real concern is when Venezuela comes back online, meaning when the sanctions get lifted, they have the largest oil resources in the world, sorry. They get the money to be able to refurbish those systems. Because the Americans are going to put so much pressure on them, most of the people who will get their contracts back from nationalization are going to be the companies that were there before. And Venezuela will have greater economic significance to the United States of America than Guyana. And what happens at that stage? How are we going to navigate in that world? Because you will have an exceedingly powerful Venezuela. They will have more lobbyists, more access to Washington. They will be far more influential simply on the numbers. They got 26 million people and more oil than the Lord allows. What is going to be our position then? Not just generally in relation to the border, hopefully it gets settled before then, but generally in terms of whose interest is really going to get a fair shake in those circumstances. And those are the discussions we really should be having nationally. But we're not, we're too busy fighting with each other over foolishness. Not necessarily over foolishness, just because one person getting all the corn, the other person ain't getting all the corn. And the discussion, I saw a couple of clips, people are saying, who's going to die for the country? And then when you die, who really benefiting? These are real discussions we have to have, because people have those discussions every day. Don't let us fool ourselves. They have them every single day. And the best way to deal with that is to have open discussions about these issues.
Nigel, thank you so much for that. And to all our listeners, I'm very grateful for you guys this evening. But I recall over the past 2 decades since I've known you, Nigel, I've disagreed with you on 2 occasions. This happened to be the 3rd occasion I disagree with you. I disagreed with you on the let the system work. I also disagreed with you on whether it is chicken curry or curry chicken. And tonight I'm disagreeing with you again on another issue. I do not need someone like Bharat Jagdeo, who fits the description as he basically labeled Cathy Hughes. He is a perfect example of that, to label me or anybody looking like me or any citizen or any human being a low life. I certainly am not a low life. And I don't want Jagdeo to describe anybody, be it Cathy Hughes, be it Nigel Hughes, be it Wayne Caesar, be it Roxanne Best, be it MD John, anybody, or Bernadette James as a low life. Coming from him, maybe
Mark,
he needs to look into the mirror.
Give me the right to respond.
Sure.
Mark, I cannot define Mark Benchop. Mark Benchop defines Mark Benchop. I can't define Wayne Caesar. You define yourself. Bharat Jagdeo can't define me. Bharat Jagdeo cannot define my wife. If you subscribe to that view, sure you can. In the old days, they tried to describe black people as chattel. You think that if they pass a law now saying black people are chattel, we accept it? Sorry, I do not accept what Bharat Jagdeo said. He cannot define me. And in a country that is as divided as Guyana is, he doesn't represent me. The only reason I need Guyana is for the passport. But as far as I'm concerned, he is the vice president of a geographic space called Guyana, but he is the vice president of his supporters. He doesn't define me, and he can't define my wife, and he cannot define any member of my family. But what I will say is, insofar as he takes it upon himself to go ahead and be as offensive as he is, we will see what the system says about it. We will see if CARICOM has the courage to deal with it. We will see whether the courts have the courage to deal with this. We will see whether the fact that the Constitution does not provide the ability for you to be able to exercise and enjoy your rights under those treaties, we'll see what the system has to say for it. We will see globally what happens, and we will see the campaign that will be taken, how he deals with that, because it's not Bar Jagdeo, the vice president of Guyana and the leader of the People's Progressive Party, defined a sitting African MP as a lowlife. That's like both are saying that Mandela is a house slave. Let's see where it goes, my friend. Let's see where it goes.
Thank you so much for your time. We'll give you an opportunity for your closing remarks, sir, as you leave our program for tonight until some other time when you are a guest again, hopefully soon. Your closing remarks, sir.
Mark, I say to you, I'm happy that, even there's life after Dharmla, that, you can have me back in your program, and that we are still...
But look at when there is life after. We had to go very low to get life back again.
Are you suggesting that I'm a low lifer? That's why you got me in the program.
No, I wouldn't dare do that, sir. I would suggest the person that description came from is probably one. But go right ahead, sir.
I will say to you, Mark, irrespective of whether you agreed, we disagree, I will always say that I owe you and the people of Guyana owe you a sense of gratitude for your consistent dedication to the people who are less fortunate, and your articulation of their trials and your explanation to them. I say that to you now. I said that to you even during Dharmlal, and I will continue to say that because we owe you a debt of gratitude. I have no fancy statements to make, and I just wanted to say thank you, Mr. Caesar. Pleasure to meet you, and may you continue to do the good work you do, and may God continue to bless you, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you,
so much,
Council.
Nigel. And I appreciate that you let the public know that we have gotten past the Dharamlal incident, and we stopped talking to each other. Nigel saying, talking back to you.
No. You're
Quiet.
the person, my friend. My friend, you and I can't remember his name. What's the guy from London again?
Yeah. So we're never lost. We might disagree on subjects. We might disagree on issues, but we are always grown and mature enough to say, let us get past that. Now the system is working for us.
I hope so.
Nigel, thank you so much, man. Give my regards to Kathy.
Gracias.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Nigel Hughes there for you guys. We appreciate him being on with us this evening. Wayne, what is your take on Mr. Hughes there?
Excellent. We know Nigel is going to answer his questions already. He is very, very careful in how he answers questions. And listen, I think we got some great answers from him. I thought that, he probably would have gotten back into the political game full time, but he made it known tonight that, he has no intentions.
Don't worry. That made it known. Nigel is a lawyer. He's my friend. He's been my friend for over 2 decades. He is a lawyer. I recall in 1991 when then Vice President, or in 91, sorry, he was not 91, when Vice President Bush Sr. ran for his first term as president, he said, it would have been 89 or sometime back, yeah, or 88, sorry. He said, read my lips, no more new taxes. No more new taxes, read my lips. Politicians and lawyers are not that far off from each other, They're not far off. And this is not an insult to Nigel. Nigel may say no today, but yes tomorrow.
Yes,
No tomorrow, but yes the next day.
Yes, and Mark, today is only the 27th day of November, 2023. We have some time to go, so Nigel have a lot of time to possibly change his mind, and he have a love for the people. So if requested, I think there's a chance that he jumps back in. But I don't want to speculate, but I feel, there's a chance that he may jump back in. That would be a good thing for Guyana, I must say.
You never know. Lawyers, I noticed some lawyers shaking their heads on the program. Lawyers and politicians. Sorry about that, guys. 28 minutes after 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's really a pleasure. Good to have you back. Wayne, you've been missing in action from over to you. You seem to... You see, you're running away from your responsibilities, and people inboxing me, where is Wayne? Where is Wayne? You need to get over to you going, bro.
All right. Okay. Mark, I'm not going anywhere. I'm
Thank you.
here with my people. I'm here all the time with my people. Guys, look for me and over to you this coming Saturday. We have a lot to talk about.
Thank you
We
so
have
much,
a
Mr.
whole lot
Wayne
to talk
Caesar.
about.
And
All
thank you
right,
to
Mark.
all our listeners as well. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. Wayne Caesar there for you guys, Nigel Hughes as well. But it's been a lovely hour and a half with you folks. It's good to have Nigel back, and he is back. He's always been there, but we got over that let the system work kind of thing. Um, you guys are smart people. You read between the lines what went on between Nigel and I in Let the System Work. I am a victim of the system. And when you're a victim of the system, as some of you who are watching here probably are victims of the system too. When you're a victim of the system, it's difficult for you to really sit and try to dissect what someone is saying. Let the same corrupt system under the PPP regime work, knowing very well that it is not going to work. No matter how we twist it, no matter how we turn it, no matter how we try to dress it up, the system is not going to work. We see what is happening here with Cathy Hughes, an idiotic individual like Barrett Jackdale, who is more suited for the description he gave Miss Cathy Hughes by calling her a low life. We see how the system is working, right? It is not working in favor of Cathy Hughes and people who look like Cathy Hughes, because the people who are controlling the system are comfortable with it. And many of them are silent. They're not going to do anything. They're not going to say anything. A perfect example as to why the system isn't working, especially under the PPP regime. Sherrod Duncan called, allegedly called someone, that guy, he sits here as Prime Minister, Mark Phillips, a house slave. We saw how the system rushed after him, right? Sherrod Duncan. Jagdeo called Cathy Hughes a low life. And see what the system isn't doing at all. So we need a good government in order for all the systems to work. Right now, the system isn't working at all. No matter what we do, no matter what we try, no matter what we say, it is not working. And yeah, good for now. The system is gotta. I gotta get back to work, guys. I gotta get back to work. Otherwise, the system wouldn't work. Yeah. All right. We'll talk to you guys later. See you tomorrow, same place, same time, right here on 107.1 FM. Say bye-bye. What part of Guyana are you from?
No, where?
I know they know. Where?
Guyana.
Guyana? Where in Guyana are you from? You're from Linden. All right. Good night to all the Linden folks. Good night to Emma, who's from Linden as well. God bless you all. We'll be back tomorrow. Same place, same time. Thanks to Nigel Hughes again. Wonderful person. Good guest. And thanks to Mr. Caesar. And to all of you, thank you all so much. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, my name is Jasmine Caldata from Sicily, Vietnam. And since 1965, I become a voter. And I always place my ex next to the cup. And what they are doing today, I can't take it. So I have no more vote to give to PPP anymore. I'm not going to vote anymore no more. If they have to lose by one vote, they're losing it by data. I have none.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
one. Straight up. Blackness I am. Aye. Who tell the truth? Mark Ben stop. Defend the ghetto youth. Mark Ben stop. Radio station is the fruit. Mark Ben stop. Straight up from the root. Mark Ben stop. Who tell the truth? Mark Ben stop. Defend the ghetto youth. Mark Ben stop. Radio station is the fruit. Mark Ben stop. Straight up from the root. Mark Ben stop. I do it for the love. Him not do it for no money. Straight up. Him attack. Educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up and stop stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can need it, don't contact the crooks gonna walk. Who tell the truth? Mark Ben stop. Defend the ghetto youth. Mark Ben stop. Radio station is the truth. Mark Ben stop. Straight up from the root.